You what? You just mumbled.
I know because I was going to give a warning that my carbon monoxide detector keeps going off. So either if I drop
I haven't
dead,
heard. I haven't heard that yet.
no, but I hope it doesn't go off because it's
You
very
see,
loud.
that's the funny thing is that my first thought was it's going to fuck up the recording.
Yes.
Your first thought was you might be dying in a carbon monoxide.
I don't want to fuck up the recording, but if you see me keel over, just know that I've had carbon monoxide poisoning. Um,
And speaking of record, I don't have my regular professional microphone with me today, so I don't know how this sounds in the recording. So I apologize. I probably will be more annoyed about it than anybody else because I'm such an audio head.
yes.
And don't forget the audio file.
Hmm.
But regardless, didn't want to let the listeners down. We
All
showed
right.
up to our appointment.
You're here.
So, what are we? Whilst you're doing squats there, what are we discussing today?
We are going to have a continuation from our last episode, which was talking about habits and I don't even want to say exercise, like moving your body, activity, sleep importance. We're going to talk about stress today. And we're going to talk about anything else that you want to talk about. I do want to kick off, though, with something that we talk about all the time, and that's who's around you, right?
Hmm.
That's who are we connected with? Who are we spending time with? Who gets our time, energy, and effort? And also just like what a big, small world this universe is. So, you were not able to join me this morning, but we were invited to a coffee and coaches gathering. It was through the ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation. I am not certified with them, something I've played around with for a long time, but it was such a great event. There was a lot of people, maybe up to 30 people. We had
Oh
a little
wow.
circle. Everyone, there were coaches there from like people that work with neurodiversity to, executive coaches to wellness coaches, career coaches, just a really cool group. And anytime you're in that type of environment, you get to feed off that energy. And I think
Hmm.
as a coach or even a leader, we're used to bringing that energy and we don't always get it refilled by the people around us. So it was a
Yeah.
great event. Not only made some really great connections just with people that I'm looking forward to hanging out with, but when you're around people like this, people like you, people, Fred comes to mind instantly. I have a lead in for Johnson and Johnson and another really big accounting firm who happens, the CEO's wife happens to be a life coach. And they
Hmm.
actually do a combination of people that are using their accounting services, and there's a lot of divorce and estate planning. They also have access to a life coach. And she was
Nice.
very specific about not doing executive coaching, not really doing the culture and kind of core values work that I do. So it just, it's always great when you can get with like-minded people where it could be easily viewed as competition and really it's not because everyone's so unique in what they deliver and also how they deliver it. A lot of new coaches like just starting out and a lot of really seasoned coaches, and it was awesome. It was really awesome. Just
Yeah.
a reminder of, make sure that you're getting into rooms like this and being
Yes.
around people. And it could have been a flop. I've definitely gone to some networking things that were like wah, wah. um
Well, it's interesting because in music, you go to networking things and everybody's very much about themselves.
yeah.
It's always about like, what are you working on? So you can tell them what you're working on. Everybody's really inflating what they're actually doing because they want to
Right.
sound like they're being more successful than they are.
Hmm.
And I absolutely hated that. And you learn some skills in terms of how to present yourself and sell
Yeah.
yourself, but yeah, I never felt comfortable with that, and I much prefer environments like that. And I think coaching in particular, you've got people who live in the vulnerable space, so they're
Yes.
okay being vulnerable themselves. And like you said, there's no competition. Like if you and I were going for the same client, and I wanted them to buy health coaching, and you wanted them to buy the leadership coaching, I'd be just as happy if they chose you as they chose me because I know that that's going to help these people. And ultimately, if that's what you care about,
Yeah.
that's the ultimate goal, right? And it's funny you said that about just being around people. I was just on while I was making some food, I jumped on a webinar real quick that FDN, who I'm doing my certification through right now. And one of the ladies on there, it was with recent graduates, and she was talking about her adjustment from working in the corporate world, moving into, being an entrepreneur and working for herself. And one of the things that she really struggled with at the time was, when you're in the corporate space, you get feedback all the time, like,
Yes.
oh, you submitted that report, nice job, or oh, great presentation, blah, blah, blah. When you're running a business or when you're a coach, because you have to run a business when you're a coach, you do all of this stuff, it's like Amy will sometimes say to me, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like it's 8 o'clock and I'm putting together a website or some marketing materials or whatever. And a lot of that stuff doesn't get seen and you get no gratification for it.
Yep.
And it's it can be challenging to stay motivated and without that constant feedback. So when you're with coaches like that, and that's what is really inspiring to me, and I told you this before, you know, working alongside you on all the things we do, I'm seeing you at a level that I want to get to, and it's like, oh, she's actually doing it. Like this is
Yes.
actually possible. And
Yes.
then when you're in a room with all those people, you're like, oh my God, like this is a real thing.
Yes,
This is
it's
great.
a real thing, and so many of the coaches there that were a little bit newer to their own business, they said the same exact thing you just said. They were coming out of the corporate space and they were so lonely. And so funny because when I
Hmm.
think of corporate, I'm like, ugh. Um, but to hear that perspective
Yeah.
and then having to be purposeful about it and just talk about full circle. We were at Stone Bean Dewey Meadows in Basking Ridge, and the only reason that coffee shop really exists in that location is because when I went through my divorce, that I rented in the townhomes that were there because it was the only place I could find that had a 3 bedroom. That space was available. I showed it to my brother and sister-in-law. They opened it. This coaching came in. They said we want to host this coffee for coaches here. My sister-in-law was like, "Oh, my sister-in-law is a coach," and instantly messaged me. And then here I am standing in a circle in a space talking to these other amazing coaches. And it's like, well, if I didn't go through my divorce,
Yeah.
this moment wouldn't have just happened.
Yeah.
So it's just again like just looking everything for a reason. Everything is just part of this amazing journey of life. And what we're going to talk about today, which is the continuation of just being empowered to make sure our minds and bodies are at the best place possible that we're capable of at this moment in time, and being gentle with ourselves and learning and experimenting with what feels good and what makes us feel good and what makes us not feel good, and doing more of the stuff that makes us feel good, and when we need help and support, just reaching out and connecting. And that's what I love, and that's what I love about this podcast.
Yeah, for sure. And on that note, I think it's really important that everybody who listens to this always thinks about how they can be a connector.
Mm,
Because I really relate to people who will make an introduction and they get absolutely nothing out of it.
right.
And I think all of us on here, we all have valuable relationships that, while it might just be a good friend to us, it could be a life-changing business relationship for someone else. And so just, when it's something that's always come naturally to me, and I've always had a hard time expressing, because there's a skill to it of like knowing who needs to know who and making that introduction and making that introduction in a way where everybody's getting the mutual benefits and stuff. And I just, that whole example was just such a good reminder to like always think about who you know and how they could help people you care about.
Yes.
And maybe I'm just saying that because I'm about to, start my health coaching business, but or health practitioner business. But it really does. I think that's just a great example of like, you met a few people there that all of a sudden now you've got some opportunities in other places, and
Yeah.
it all came from your sister-in-law telling you that there's something going on, right?
Right. And I've gone into there, and I've done disc work in the cafe, with some of their younger staff members. It's if you're always bringing value to people, just being by authentically yourself, there's a natural way to make connections. And there's some people that automatically think about how can I connect these people, but it's also okay to tell people how they can work with you, to tell people what
Yeah.
you need, right? Like, hey, this is what I'm doing. You know, I'm bringing this to the world, but I don't want to, and I can't do it on my own. So if there's anyone you think I can be of value to, please connect us. And then, but then you got to tell people, how do you connect them? Well, here's my
Yeah.
website, or, share this card with them, or share this with them. Like, you need to help people understand how they can do business with you, which is really just how they can support you.
Yeah. And before we kind of get into that stress stuff, something else that was brought up on the webinar, I only got about 10, 15 minutes of it, but there was a common theme between a lot of the new graduates, and they were all saying, it was a real adjustment for me, you know, I've got the validation now of being certified in this. I've been, researching all of this stuff for decades and in my own personal health journey, and that every one of us seems to get there from starting with ourselves. Um, and you think, all right, and now I can help everybody. Like all these people I know that I know they need me,
Yeah.
and then having the realization that actually those people don't want to be helped.
Yeah.
And I think, that's something that I think both of us probably have experienced or will experience of like, I know you need my help,
Yeah.
but going back to our conversations a few episodes ago of being ready, willing, and able, they're just not ready yet,
Right.
or they're not willing.
Yeah, and sometimes they just don't know, right? And that's where I'm a big believer in asking permission. I used to not catch myself, and Ben's oldest son, Michael's, very like, oh, you're in business mode. It's so natural for me to flow in and out of it, but I do realize I just do go into mode. It's so me, but I have learned to kind of recognize it, and then I'll ask someone like, is it okay if I coach you for a second? Or is it
Yeah,
okay if and just ask for permission? Most people say yes. I've had people say no, and that's okay. And then I'm like, okay, and I just let it go. Um, but just that simple asking permission, or it would be okay if I maybe gave you a different thought. Would it be
yeah,
okay if I asked you, that's so interesting. Would it be okay if I asked you a question or two on what you just said? And it makes people kind of stop and slow down for a second, and they will receive it much differently once they've said yes.
yeah,
So, and then you can see if they're just tuned out to it, you let it be. This, you just planted the seed. Sometimes it just blows the door wide open. They're like, oh my gosh, no one's ever asked me that. No one's ever asked me a question like that. No one's ever, you show someone something new, and then all of a sudden they're like, wow, I want more of that. Okay, great. Well, here's some options.
yeah, yeah. But it is just challenging from from the other side of it, where if you're someone that knows you have information or a skill set that you know can help people, and all you want to do is help people, like you're driven by that, and they don't want to be helped. And it's something I kind of thankfully learned in the fitness space was, not everybody wanted to be lectured about how bad Orange Theory is for you and all of these other companies. Um, do I have to throw an allegedly in there? Are we going to get sued by Orange Theory? But it's my
Yes,
opinion. It's an
absolutely.
opinion. Um,
It's not the
so
views of Alpha Flow podcast.
yeah, exactly. So it, I kind of learned that skill, and it annoys me when people start trying to lecture me on things when I don't want to hear it at that point. But yeah, but I guess there's a difference because I get annoyed when it's someone just trying to prove how smart they are versus them actually wanting to help.
Mhm.
But point still applies.
Yep. Ask for permission. The information can only meet you where you're at. And John Maxwell, you can only save the people that are swimming towards the boat.
Yeah. Oh, what was a really good one I heard? Oh, you can try and teach a pig to sing, but you're going to waste your time, and the pig's not going to be able to sing. I think it was something like that. I may have messed it up. I thought it was funny.
A singing pig, the people swimming towards the boat. Another one was say no to the needy so you can say yes to the hungry,
Mm,
right? There's people that just like have handout, but they just want you to do something for them. They don't actually want to act. They're not hungry to make something happen from it.
yeah,
And so when you can kind of say yes to everybody in the beginning, but then realize who's hungry and who just like wants a magic button, or they want you to do it for them. I've recently had a corporate coaching client that was like, well, why aren't you doing this for us? I'm like, I'm doing it with you. Like, I can't do this for you. Like,
yeah,
creating your corporate culture and your values, that has to come from you. It's not for me to give
Yeah.
to you. So, um, that's staying at cause. There's so much amazing conversation we could have around that, but I want to get to the stress conversation because it was something that you and I were starting to talk about pre-pod, because I've been on kind of my weight loss journey. I don't even like saying that, but really in the past 3 months I'm down 8.6 pounds. It feels good. I've kind of gone through a process there, and you're like, what do you attribute it to? And there's several things that I attribute it to, but really a big one is my sleep, and kind of, I would say, my stress awareness. And I really just let go and became really soft with myself with several things, including the intensity that I was working out at. So I'm kind of shifting back into like the next gear again, but having an awareness around stress, strain, and recovery. And stress is good. Some stress is good, but I really want to delve in there. And if we can start there with you on this conversation about our health and wellness and
Yeah.
stress.
Yeah, I mean, stress is one of the biggest, you could argue it's the biggest contributor to, you know, pretty much any health condition. We talked about last week the idea there's all these hidden stressors that are affecting all of the different systems in your body, contribute to this metabolic chaos, and you know all these chain reactions that maybe you're suffering from weight gain and it's because of stress, or maybe uh you know you're having heart issues and it's because of stress. Maybe you're having gut issues, it's because of stress.
Mhm.
Or maybe stress is actually your stress is elevated because some of those things are off. But if we can start trying to reduce it all, it's all gonna bring back that balance. And I think we've talked about it a lot, right? The idea that sometimes you don't even realize you're living in the stress. And that's one of the reasons, we run these stress hormone panels, because they're really eye-opening to, oh my God, like I'm stressed when I shouldn't be. I've got all this cortisol floating around in the afternoon when it should be lower than it is. Um, and some of the signs are, if you're one of those people who it gets to 10, 11 o'clock and you get this second wind and you can't get to bed until 2. That's not normal. Like, being a night owl is not normal. That just means you're getting this huge jolt of cortisol at
Mhm.
night, and we would probably see that in any of the panels that you do. um and yeah, I think people really need to make a conscious effort. Even if you feel like you're not stressed, oh, I don't need to meditate, I handle stress really well. I bet you'd see an improvement in how you feel by doing something like that to reduce your stress.
People are living in the chaos for a couple different reasons. One, it's really scary to stop, because when you stop
Yeah.
and you actually have to look at what's going on in your life, that's something that a lot of people don't want to look at. And the other is what we talk about a lot, is that we've actually forgotten what it feels like to be in a balanced state. We've forgotten what
Hmm.
it feels like, to have a nervous system that's balanced. So we're just go, go, going. And that's why you'll often see people that are like a million miles an hour. They just crash. They get some kind of sickness. I've had it happen to me. I think everyone's, had it happen at some level. And I'm not even talking about full burnout, just that you can only keep going for so long. And it might be a couple months, it might be a couple years, it might be a lifetime, but it's going to hit at some point. So if you can get an awareness around how your body is operating and have a baseline of what it actually feels like to have
Yeah.
a regulated nervous system to compare it to, and then you can get the tools of how to get there. And I don't think you're saying, or anyone's saying, that we're going to live in this constant state of utopia. It's about being able to have awareness when you are more stressed, and then to be able to take action with tools that work for you. And then have your kind of your daily habits that we've spoken about, that prevent you from getting to that overstress. But stuff's going to happen. Everything's going great one second, the next second, you're in full on action mode because
Yeah.
something's come up. So that's where that counterbalance comes in.
Yeah, and to your point, we shouldn't have this idea that we're going to be stress free and yes, we should try and minimize the amount of stress we're exposed to, but that's just not reality. And actually, I would argue that you're not actually flexible enough if you're not able to adapt to acute stress. Like if something stressful happens and you can't deal with it,
Hmm.
then that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So we have to learn to, stress comes, we acutely deal with it. We get
Mhm.
that bump in cortisol and all these other hormones, and then we're back to normal.
Yeah.
But the trouble is, we never get back to normal. We're constantly in this, fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
Your sympathetic nervous system is completely overriding your parasympathetic, and again that causes issues in other systems, like we just mentioned. So yeah, it's really something that we've got to get under control. And to your point, you can get away with it for a long time. Some people get away with it well into their 50s, 60s.
Mhm.
And it goes back to that idea of vital reserve, right? The reason you're able to get away with it is because you've got this store of energy you're able to pull from. That's kind of it's not it's not regulating things and keeping it normal, but it's basically compensating for it. You're having to produce other hormones like DHEA to counterbalance the cortisol, and you're able to kind of level it out and ride the wave a little bit, but eventually it catches up with you. It really does. And when it does catch up with you and those symptoms show up, you've got a much bigger problem on your hand if you just spent the time 10 years earlier and just slowly trying to manage that stress.
Yeah. Stress is not this big evil thing. I mean, if you think about working out, you're putting stress on the muscle, right? And so, but you have to counterbalance it with recovery. You have to counterbalance
Yeah.
that. So, stress is not a bad thing. We need resilience. We need
Hmm.
things that uh, teach our mind how to be resilient. And when we're talking about the nervous system, we already know with the vagus nerves, or the bundle of nerves, that 80% of the communication is the body to the brain. So this is not mindset. This is how our body is operating in the world, and what we're putting into it, what we're doing with it, what we're giving it, what we're depriving it of. And also then taking that responsibility for owning that. And that
Yeah.
means, what kind of environment, if your environment is constantly stressful, you have to make a decision that you might need to move environments, whether that's your personal, what's going on in your personal world, or what's going on in your work world. You have to take responsibility for your nervous system state and for the level of stress. Now, can't say that it's not someone else that's causing you to stress, but you're making a decision to keep that person in your life. And you
Yeah.
can say, well, I need to make a paycheck, or, I'm married to them, or whatever it might be. Okay, well, it's still a decision. So you either make a different decision, or you say, what can I do to counterbalance something that's not going to change? Or I'm not willing to change this, but you can make some counterbalance measures.
Yeah, I mean that's the easiest way of dealing with the stress, right? Is completely removing it, removing yourself from that stressful environment.
Mhm.
Um, and that is a question we do need to ask ourselves. Is, to your point, is that paycheck worth the stress that comes with it? Um, and if you really can't, uh, you know, find an immediate exit plan, and you really need that paycheck, then how do you deal with the stress better? How do you kind of disassociate yourself from that environment? Um,
What
Easier
I,
said than done,
yes.
but it
And
is
that's
possible.
and that's the stress, right? So when we talk about comfort zone, the comfort zone isn't a comfortable space. It's just, that's the stress that versus the stress that you don't know. Like, well, if I quit
Yeah.
this job and I don't have a paycheck coming in, that's a whole different level of, set of stressors. So if you feel like you can cope and survive, we'll often kind of stay in that survival mode,
Hmm.
because it's too scary to make a change. And here's the other thing: wherever you go, there you are. So sometimes it's environment and it's something outside of you, but if you don't have the tools to regulate yourself, no matter what job you go to, no matter what boss you're with, no matter what relationship you're in, if you don't fix your own reactiveness, you'll just be bouncing around, from
Yeah.
relationship to relationship, and job to job, and never really happy. And then, talk about impact and negative ripple effect, how you're showing up in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. And the yes, you could have external factors like the environment you're in and things like that, but there are things that you can make, or lifestyle changes you can make, really low hanging fruit that can
Mhm,
affect the internal factors, right? Cortisol follows the circadian rhythm. It follows a pattern that's synced with your circadian rhythm, so it peaks at the most in the morning,
mhm,
and then over the day it gradually goes down. So you can just make slight changes. One of the things that I changed, and which I think was contributing to it, was I had a bump in the afternoon,
mhm,
um, of where my cortisol was higher and out of range than it should be, and I think that was because I was drinking too much coffee. I would often have like a 2, 3 o'clock uh, coffee, and then that's why. And if you can get that back in check, you're going to be able to deal with that stress a lot better because you've got your cortisol and your adrenals are working to produce the right amount, so you don't feel the stress so much. And it, talk about early morning light. Another great reason to get aligned with your circadian rhythm is to make sure your cortisol levels are where they should be in the morning.
mhm,
A simple, Gary Brecker talks about it a lot. Get outside before you look at your phone. Get outside before you have your coffee.
mhm.
Do I do that? No. I try and delay how soon I look at my phone. I typically will meditate. I'll brush my teeth straight away and then I'll meditate
Yeah,
for 10, 15 minutes. So by the time I look at my phone, it's 15, 20 minutes gone. But even then, I'm reading the Bible, so I'm not like actively scrolling or anything like
yes,
that. That little change can have a huge impact on your stress.
yeah,
And you could be fucking your morning up or fucking your day up by how you act in the morning.
yeah. Or how you act at night. Something that
Yeah.
you just said, and it's in support of what you said about your phone, and you're married, you're waking up with your wife in the morning. For people that don't have relationships where they're waking up next to a partner, they've actually done a lot of studies where if you have someone that you just say good morning via text to every morning, they say good morning to you, you say good morning to them, that can start you in a positive state for the morning. Now, I'm not talking about getting on your phone and doing doom scrolling first thing in the morning, but there is nothing wrong with saying good morning to your significant other that you don't live with, or your best friend, or whoever in your life that you could kind of got in that habit. They have shown the benefits of just kind of waking up and having that good morning exchange. And
Yeah, I
then,
mean, even I would imagine the even doing that with a pet.
sure.
Like I get up hours before the rest of the family does,
Yeah.
by design, because I want that time to myself.
Yeah.
The kids do their best to interrupt that most mornings, but the cat always follows me,
Yep.
and she's always either on my lap or next to me, and that I'm sure has a similar effect.
Yeah.
Not quite the
It's
same, but
connection. It's
yeah,
all it is connection. And we've gotten into this, not all of us, but in this mindset that we have to do all of this stuff on our own and we've got to do it ourselves. And we are not natural beings of being these solo lone wolves. We are meant to be in community. We are meant to be around people. We are meant. It's why I don't have an issue with children sleeping in the bed. Now I think it's healthy for children to have their own bed, but I I, I like sleeping next to someone. Why would it be weird or wrong for my child to want to be near me?
yeah,
Right. So, and that's my take on it. So it's not all the time, but if Alexander's like, hey, I really wanna can I sleep in here tonight? I don't have an issue with it. Now, if he would never sleep in his own bed, it would be different. But we have a desire to have a connection with each other. And I will often
oh,
wake up to,
100%.
you know, him in bed and the dog's like upside down between us, or like draped across me. And those are some of my favorite mornings, because that's not going to be forever. So I have no problem with that. And so however you're connecting, connect with another being in the morning, your dog, your cat, your whoever you live with, your bestie, whoever you text in the morning. There's nothing wrong with that. But then, getting out, I do take my coffee outside. So I do
There you
not
go.
diminish
Yeah,
my coffee intake.
habit stacking.
Yes.
Yeah, and truth, is it gonna is the improvement of doing it in a specific order is,
Hmm.
you know, I would probably argue is negligible as long
Hmm.
as you're getting that time outside.
Hmm.
It's not gonna have as huge an impact. And then even things like what are you eating for breakfast that can have a huge impact on your stress levels throughout the
Sure.
day. If you're eating this high carb, high sugar, low protein, low fat breakfast, aka cereal or toast,
Yeah.
then you're probably going to mess up your cortisol levels there too, and your ability to deal with stress will be impacted from that.
Yeah.
Um, it's all these low hanging fruit things we can do to reduce stress
Hmm.
that will really set your day up in a much better way.
Hmm. Okay, so let's talk about some more things we can do. And I'm just so stuck on like the awareness thing. I got my new Whoop, the new, I don't know what version this is. Um,
5,
Again, it's just bringing awareness. It's just bringing awareness to what things are happening in my body. How many times did I wake up during the night? How am I feeling? Right. So I'm just looking at like, how am I feeling? Like, how was my sleep last night? I might go look. Oh wow, I was waking up like once every 65 minutes. Okay, explains why I'm tired right now. If I, didn't have that information, I might be wondering, okay, I need to do better at making sure I'm setting myself up better for sleep tonight or in the future. Um, Doing things like if we're working or sitting, like when I'm home working and I'm not traveling, it can be really easy to just sit down in front of the computer and be here all day long. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see I will often do a midday break where I take unsweetened iced tea. I go sit outside and I pop my feet up on my fire pit for 10-15 minutes and I just kind of
yeah.
reset. I'm a totally different person when I've come back and get back
Oh
into work
yeah.
that way. So and I'll post it on social like, "Hey, here's your midday reminder to take a break." Sometimes we need permission to do that. We feel so guilty for resting. It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that it doesn't have to be, $1,000 cold plunge pool that you have at your house or an infrared sauna. You don't have to go anywhere. Just take 10 minutes, get in the sun, stop being scared of the sun,
Mm-hmm.
get fresh air, ground on the ground on the earth. You'll
Mm-hmm.
feel so much better. Um,
And
and
have
so
the
that's another.
awareness.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of activities you can do to reduce stress, we talked about meditation.
Mhm.
Um, Grounding is a huge one. We're so positively charged from all of the EMS we have flying around and all the things of that nature. Getting outside and neutralizing with the negative charge of the earth, you're going to feel so much better.
Yeah.
It really, brings you back down to normal. And we're talking about on a cellular level here.
Yes.
Like it has
Scientific.
such a big impact on everything.
Yeah.
It's
Touching trees. Be a tree hugger, right?
the
We've
same
got to
thing.
get rid of this thing. If you literally lay your hands on a tree, I probably scared several people that have seen me hugging trees. Um, just lay your hands on a tree, feel that vibration, right? There is an energy there. Uh,
Hmm.
there's so much you can do, and don't let perfect or perfection be like the enemy of getting started or doing something. We think we've got to do it. We've got to get to the gym for an hour. We've got to do something right. We've got to get the $1,000 cold plunge. Like, no, there's so much we can do. If you just take 5 minutes, just start with 5 intentional minutes a day, it will change your life. It
Yeah.
naturally grows from there. But what's one thing that you are willing to commit to? And you can just say for the next week, every day, I'm going to touch your tree. I'm going to take my shoes off for 5 minutes outside. I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes. I'm going to take a bath every night. Whatever it is, pick one thing. Go to Chat GPT. Hey, GPT, I'm feeling very stressed. I'm having a hard time falling asleep at night. Please act as a sleep expert and a high performance coach and give me 10 suggestions on what I can do to set myself up for better sleep.
And by the way, it's going to tell you everything we just mentioned. Is
Exactly.
that really is it? Breathing, doing some box breathing or just some deep breathing.
Hmm.
All of that will help reduce stress.
There are so many tools and there's a plethora of information. The point is pick one thing, try it for a week, and be conscious every day. How do I feel when I'm waking up? How do I feel when I'm going to bed at night? Like, okay, this is working. I'm going to keep doing it. And then things start to become a habit. Or you know what? This
Yeah,
isn't working. This isn't working. Maybe I need to make a tweak to it or maybe I need to try something else and that's okay. But
yeah,
start now, start today. Start right now. Ask yourself, what am I going to do for the next 5 days?
yeah. And you know, there are some supplements you can take. I didn't want to talk about supplementation just because, unless I know you may have allergies to ashwagandha, for example, and then I recommend an adaptogen blend that's got it in it. But look at some adaptogen uh, blends, and if you reach out to me if you want any suggestions, I can point you to the right ones.
Yeah.
Um, that will really help too. It will really help regulate your nervous system during the day and stop those kind of big peaks and troughs
Yeah.
that you go through. And I think one thing that can't be understated is working on your mindset, because I think a lot of people, it's self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like
Yeah.
you will always be stressed out about an outcome because you want that you want to be essentially,
Mhm.
unless you've got that growth mindset of going back to the coffee shop example, right? Like you went through the divorce and bad thing became a great thing.
Yeah.
And instead of just living in that stress, and that was something that really helped me with reducing stress outside of all the things I was doing, was working on my mindset, because I just was like, I'm not going to allow myself to get overly worked up about things anymore,
Yep.
and that has that cascading effect.
Hmm. And again, doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but you're better equipped to realize when you're getting to that point or you've gone past the point, and how do you get back from that, and getting rid of the shame and the guilt and all the things we want to beat ourselves up about when we kind of go to a place where it's not our best. Like, that's
Hmm.
okay. We're just human beings. But what's not okay is knowing that there's ways to help yourself and not taking action on it. That's not okay. Just impacting everybody else in negative ways and going through this world, this one life, this one beautiful life that we get to live. We
Yeah.
just get one that we know of. I don't know. I think I definitely feel like I've had some past lives. But right now, every day is a great day. I walk, I used to run, walk past a cemetery that's up the road from me every day, and sometimes it's like that in your face reminder of, like, yeah, I'm above ground. I'm healthy, my child's healthy. Like,
Yeah.
there could be a whole bunch of crap going on, but really everything I can handle everything.
Well, and you made a great point there about walking instead of running, and I think if you listen to this episode and last episode, you should really get a sense of how everything is so intertwined.
Yeah.
You know, I think people think, and I was definitely like this. I was a personal trainer for 20 years.
Hmm.
Just work out and everything will be fine. No, because you also need to rest properly, you need to sleep properly, and then you also need to eat the right things. If you're not eating the right things, maybe you're not going to rest properly. And then if you're also not eating the right things, it's going to affect your stress. If you're stressed, you're not going to eat all of these things.
Yeah.
And that's where I think people really need to pay attention to how much they're overstressing when it comes to working out.
Yeah.
Um, I had this realization when I was doing a session with one of the mentors at FDN. We were looking at my stress, and I was like, didn't even think I ran the New York Marathon in November. Like, I'm sure that tanked my adrenals. Like,
Hmm.
that stress that we should not be
Hmm.
experiencing,
Yeah.
running 26 miles or
Yeah.
running 20 and then hobbling for 6. Um,
Same.
so
Same.
you've really got to manage. So even when you're managing stress, you've got to manage, and you made the point earlier about your weight loss. You've really adapted how you've worked out. You're not overdoing it.
Yeah. And I'm just listening to my body. And like, now I'm ready to pick up a little bit more, but there's certain things, I talked about this last time, I just don't do anymore. There's certain things that just don't do me any favors.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to get into, like, oh, you should, you should, you should. I'm around a lot of people that do a lot of running. I've never been a runner. Now we could talk about identity statements and all of that. Now I am an athlete, but that doesn't mean that I have to be this, getting all these miles under my belt. When I run, I don't feel awesome. I might feel good
Yeah.
in the moment, but when I'm sustaining it, it's my body is just like, this is not helping me. Now, if I do incline walking or I do a little jog here and there and I get like some good miles in, and then they're like, don't live your life on the treadmill. I get all of those things, but I feel great when I get a good hour walk in. It's
Yeah.
it's mental, it's physical, and then to see my body finally just letting go of what it doesn't need. We talked about having a healthy sex life, and we don't have to go too far down that road. It's not required, but when you are adding all of these things, where are you getting dopamine hits? Where are you getting these bodies your body's natural feel good chemicals Are you getting them from abusing drugs and alcohol and substances
Hmm.
or unhealthy obsessions? Or are you getting them from very natural human being things, which is walking, which is, you know, I guess it would be procreating. I'm not, we're not making love to procreate, but not all of us are. Some of us are. Um, just doing things that are good and natural for our body. We don't need to overcomplicate it.
And to your point, doing things for your body.
Yeah.
We all have different needs. We all have different responses to foods.
Mhm.
Even something like cold plunging. There are some people that really would thrive doing it. There are a lot of people that shouldn't. And I think I think that's what I would love for everybody to come away with the most listening to these two episodes is you've got to figure out what's right for you. Maybe you do need to do some testing on that to figure that out.
Mhm.
You can also listen to your body. Sometimes it might deceive you. Like I had a gluten allergy I didn't know about,
Mhm.
and I would have found out about it later. Um, but you know, and it's really changed how I look at things online now. All these influencers, and even someone who came from, I was in the kind of carnivore space and animal based, and that's where I really have landed on animal based stuff. But that might not be good for some people, and it's okay. Just because it's something that works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And that's always driven me crazy in the fitness space of this is what I do and it's going to work for you.
Right.
No, it probably won't.
Right.
And that's why the people that I work with have been with me for 10, 15 years in this case. And that's because I've always worked them out as them and they've never got injured and all of these things. And so nothing, there's no sweeping thing. And yes, it's much easier to sell a book or to sell a course or to work one on one with people or high ticket if you can say this is the answer you've been looking for, but that's just marketing. It's not honest.
Right.
Um, it really comes down to what's good for you versus what the ideology is.
Yeah. And it comes down knowing how to ask the right questions to people to
Yeah.
help gain that information. And it also comes down to having a deep well of tools that you can go to, right? It's like you said, it's not one size fits all, but someone will get certified in something, whether it's coaching or personal training, and they know how to do things one way.
Hmm.
And it's not that they don't want to do better. And I've had my own frustrations with coaching clients where like, I just don't know what to do for them here, right? And then it was my responsibility to find out what other tools can I add to my tool belt, right? And working with someone that has a depth of knowledge, which is sometimes experience, but sometimes someone can have a really good depth of knowledge and be new in the industry, right? And but actually be much better for you than someone that's been doing it 20 years and maybe stuck in
Yeah.
some old ways. So it's finding people around you that have the depth and the brevity to really work with you as you, which is what you just said. And when you don't know certain things about yourself, like you don't know what's happening in your blood right now, but you can find tests, get tests to not have to guess in the dark. Okay, great. Let's do it. Let's see what it says. Let's get those reality checks. Doesn't mean that you're going to that you're going to take action on all of it, but at least you know, and then you can make decisions
Hmm.
from there.
Yeah. I mean, it blows my mind knowing what I know now that it's not a requirement for insurance companies to make every annual physical have a food sensitivity test.
Please. But we already know why because
Yeah,
insurance,
we know where the money will go for that.
of course. Well, and
Um,
our health system is not set up to keep us healthy. Our
no, it's a
health
sick care
system is set
system.
up
Yeah,
exactly to get us sick and then give us something to make us feel somewhat better, which is never really actually
and
better.
it's really you're masking the symptoms. Yeah,
No, and that keep people in fear and keep people in the belief that they do not have the ability to take charge of their health
yeah.
and of feeling good. And oh, by the way, if we make it so you forgot what feeling good actually feels like, then we've got you for life. And we look at younger, how much younger and younger and younger, and like we won't even talk about Ozempic for 8 and 9 year olds. Instead of just say, don't go through the fucking McDonald's drive through, excuse my language, but like we're gonna give everybody Ozempic. That's insanity. Insanity.
Yeah.
But one will be paid for. Do you know that? Sorry, I'm going to just say this. Do you know that breast implants after a mastectomy are not covered by insurance? And maybe it is now, but when my mom went through it, was not covered by insurance because it was considered cosmetic. Oh, and if you wanted to have your nipple put back on, that's like, extra cosmetic because it's considered just a useless organ. But the number one most funded thing, erectile implants, penile implants. So you had cancer, you lost your breast. If you want a boob put back on or a nipple put back there so you have some form of normalcy, that is not covered at a high level by insurance companies. But erectile dysfunction and penile implants, like full coverage. Yeah. Chew on that for a second. Sorry. Totally off topic.
Well, I'm not chewing on the penile.
Totally off topic. Anyway, point is, be responsible for your environment, who you're around, where you are, where you're living, what's going on in your home environment, your work environment. Make decisions and commitments to small things that you can try out and see how your body feels, whether that's going outside in the morning for that 10-15 minute walk or sitting out in the sunshine, looking at your caffeine intake, maybe not consuming caffeine after a specific time if you realize you're
Hmm.
getting those hits again. Working with someone like you, Paolo, to get some testing and some lab results into like what the heck is actually going on inside my body right now, and then working together with someone that's got it knowledge to help you make the right decisions for yourself.
Yeah, and that's really key. Talking of the sick care system, the model for FDNs is, we want to treat you for 90 days, 6 months, and then hopefully never see you again.
Yeah.
Yes, hopefully there's still a relationship, you'll come back for testing and whatnot, but the idea is we're helping you treat yourself and you're going to heal.
Hmm.
And we're the last person you should see.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, you shouldn't have to keep, it's one of my gripes with chiropractors is, I think they're very good and very smart people, and there's a lot of benefits to it. But to reset someone and then just have them come back 2 weeks later to reset them again, is that really helping them, or would it be better to teach them how not to come and see you again?
Yeah.
But you've got bills to pay, so you're going to have to. Your business model is me having to come back with my back all fucked up.
Hmm. I have a great chiropractor, and he does. And that, I think you'll see a lot of chiropractors in like the more of the holistic wellness
You
chiropractic.
do,
Um, because again, that's just one tool, and that's to the teach a man to fish versus give a man a
yeah.
fish. We'll have to come up with a better story that says that same thing because that's a little bit old fashioned. Um, just do something. You are responsible for you. You are capable. You are empowered. You're not meant to do it alone. Start small. My clients will always say it's not life, this is not life changing, this is not earth shattering. They feel like their win is too small, and I'm like, if you have some big breakthrough, that's amazing, but it is life changing. It's just not that instant gratification of something. But when you've been doing this consistently for 3 months and all of a sudden they realize their life has changed, I'm like, the moment you
Yeah.
told me it wasn't life changing and you were minimizing it, you were actively changing your life.
Yeah, and I'll leave with just some general advice. Again, everybody's going to have something that works better for them.
Hmm.
Um, I can tell what worked for me and what works with a lot of clients is if you've got something you can anchor your day on, a lot of the actions you take around that will have the knock-on effect of being good for you. So, for example, if you anchor, and this is what works for me, I'm going to be in bed asleep 9:30.
Hmm.
So therefore, when I was drinking alcohol, I couldn't drink alcohol past 6, 7 o'clock,
Hmm.
which most days I was working, so I couldn't drink. And then I can't eat past a certain time, 6, 7 o'clock. So I'm not gonna, mess up my sleep. And then I've got to work backwards from there to make sure I'm eating enough, etc. And you're gonna have to set up your mornings right, so you're ready to sleep at night. So if you can anchor your day, find something that is easy for you and resonates with you, and a lot of that, flip it around. You're going to be outside in the sun having a walk by 7 a.m. every morning. All right, great. That means you can't go to bed too late. So how are you setting up your day to get there?
Yeah.
Just start thinking about how you can have all of these knock-on effects from that anchor,
Hmm.
and you'll find it easier to start stacking the habits. But to your point, you've got to start small, one thing at a time. Don't try and rush it.
Nope. And be proud of yourself. Be like, you know what,
Yeah,
I did this, and maybe you do it one morning and you miss the next morning. Okay, you missed the next morning. Not what your goal was, but pick it back up again. We're too quick to just throw everything out, right? We let ourselves off the hook too easily. We cop out really easily. And I don't believe in accountability in the sense of like, someone else is gonna hold me accountable, but I do believe in accountability partners. And, tell your significant other, tell your friend, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to check in with you. I'm going to like send you my picture that I did it, or go to social media. There's no better accountability partner than social media.
yeah,
And with that too, you inspire so many people. So start small. It naturally starts to build on itself, and give yourself time. You and I have talked about this before. You mentioned about being patient. Be
yeah.
patient with yourself. Like
And I'm one of the most guilty.
yeah,
I find that very difficult. I always I want to be somewhere yesterday.
yep,
So not saying this from a place of perfection up here.
nope.
Something I struggle with too.
And it's challenging. Like I was getting on the scale and it was not moving or was moving in the wrong direction. And I'm like, God, I'm doing all the right things, right? But it wasn't really, some of them were the right things, but I was tweaking it. And then finally hit a space where, okay,
Yeah,
now it's like I get on and it's like lower, lower, lower. And I'm still, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I doing? I'm going to keep doing more of that, and then adding into it. But it does take time, and we give up way too easily. Um, and I'm not a person that gives up easily, so I have to remind myself of that.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's one of your I ams.
Yes. So, my friend, we always manage to fill the time.
Always.
Have an amazing day. Until next time, friends. Bye for now.